The world's quickest opener reveals that Josh and Jason are here for you for our Wednesday/Thursday edition. Josh, welcome back. Good to see you. So much going on as usual.
Great to be back with you to discuss all the crazy things that are going on all over the place.
Now, Josh, just quickly before we get started, is America at civil war, do you think?
You know, it's close, I'll be honest, because if you see the documentary, the undercover video that James O'Keefe and OMG Media Group did, it's pretty scary because I would actually compare them, and I already did on my show yesterday, to the fact that they are no different than terrorists in, Islamic regimes and things like that are willing to die and martyr themselves for their cause. Clearly, we have seen that in Minneapolis. The undercover video shows also that the second largest union in the United States, with 1.7 million members, the SEIU, is actually not just working for, quote, workers' rights and doing peaceful rallies and organizing things like that. They're actually funding domestic terrorists, and it's all caught on video, which I showed on my Substack yesterday. But to say that we're at civil war, we could be if, God forbid, in 2028, we don't have a Republican representatives and a president and a Senate and all of that. So yeah, it is certainly possible. But let's just hope that President Trump smashes this resistance now using the Insurrection Act and everything else. But it's definitely dicey. And I was kind of shocked. I didn't think that Minnesota was going to be as bad as Portland or California, but clearly it's probably even worse.
Well, we've seen over and over again people in respected positions, whether they be elected or in some sort of bureaucracy role or medical, and they're coming out and saying these horrific things about what they're going to do to Trump and what they're going to do to Republicans, and suggesting to inject ICE agents with chemicals to kill them, that type of stuff. We've got some Attorney General candidate saying that he's going to convict Trump and sentence him to death. And that's where I'm going in terms of civil war. But of course, it's the ultimate defiance, isn't it? It's kind of like a chain of command. So we had this story that Jacob Frey met with Trump, or had the conversation, but now he comes out and says this: the job of our police is to keep people safe, not enforce federal immigration laws. I want them preventing homicides, not hunting down a working dad who contributes to MPLS and is from Ecuador. It's similar to what Rudy, as in Giuliani, did in New York City. And Trump going, well, hang on a second. He said he does not enforce federal immigration laws. This is after having a very good conversation. Could somebody in his inner sanctum please explain that this statement is a very serious violation? Now, the point there is that that's where you get towards your Insurrection Act. Now, there's a video going around on social media. I won't have time to play it for you today, but a citizen journalist interviews a radical protester and asks them, and shows pictures of all these criminals, and says, you're saying that you're not for these criminals being arrested. This is a pedophile, and shows examples of the crimes, etc. And the guy that starts to go a bit crazy, scratching his head and saying, well, hang on, we shouldn't have ICE doing it. We should have someone else. And she says, well, ICE are the people to do it. They're the ones that have been charged to do it. That's what they've been, that's the whole point of it. And then he says, well, what you should do is go to the jails and pull people out of the jail. So it goes around in circles. And the point is that these people just can't accept when they're wrong. And this is the point. We would love to be wrong. And I tell you what, I would love more than anything else to be wrong, because I don't have to do this anymore. And we can sit back and sip pina coladas and live off the spoils of the work that we've done, the good investment decisions that we've made. We're not making any money doing the news, that's for sure. We're not on $500,000 contracts. We're not even on contracts. This is all done off your own bat. I want to be wrong. But unfortunately, we seem to be right a lot more than we are wrong, and that's why we're doing what we're doing, and in the process trying to shape a brand new world. If I get a chance, Josh, there was something I wrote the other day in response to a comment made on my Substack page to my last video, and I think I'm going to put it into my upcoming book as an introduction. I might test it over. If I don't do it in the show, I'll do it later with you, but I just think it's important where we're all headed. This is only about getting to a better world, not to destroy the world and live in the ashes. And that's what I can't understand, because it just seems that people will come from two sides. One is the self-sufficient side, that we all get to be able to do something for ourselves and our families and create those skills, etc., for our kids. And the other side says we're dependent on the government and we will squeeze you so that we can get more out of the government, of which you're the taxpayer, which we don't care because tax billionaires and take them out, etc., because we want the government to redistribute. In other words, they want to be subservient to this hidden hand, or this hand that they see that is going to move people around the board. And because they're the goody-goodies at school that want to do what the boss says and the teacher says, then they're the ones that get to share in the spoils. Well, we know that that never works. And it's just, just this crazy mentality.
You know, first thing, Rudy Giuliani, when he actually became the mayor of New York, cleaned up New York City.
Yes.
He actually took down the mob. He took down the five families. I mean, he took down so many mobsters and everything else. So he went and was successful as a prosecutor, and then went and ran on that success and became the mayor of, New York City. Mm-hmm. But what he did was completely different than what every other mayor has done, where he actually went in and he extracted the criminals. He arrested the criminals. He indicted them. He cleaned up 42nd Street. He cleaned up the 5 boroughs. He got rid of graffiti and things like that. I mean, he did a lot of things. He got rid of the peep shows and the sex, shows and all these other things that he did. And of course, then when he left, New York was as safe as it was. He was obviously great during 9/11. And then he left and they let it go all to hell once again. And you would have thought that the people of New York after 9/11 perhaps maybe would be a little more cautious and not brain dead to actually elect another jihadist in office, which is clearly what has happened in New York City. So that would be the first thing that I would say. The second thing, clearly, this is a situation where the Insurrection Act is desperately needed. These folks are out of control. You've got people in the medical field, nurses, anesthesiologists, basically saying we're going to try to harm or kill MAGA people and things like that. You have another one, a West Virginia librarian, basically saying that she wants to hire someone to kill President Trump. You have somebody else recently that said that they should go and they should put a dating profile out there and say that they want to meet an ICE agent, and then when they meet them, harm them and do crazy things to them, set them up, ambush them, kill them, hurt them, whatever. It's out of control. And this is not freedom of speech. This is incitement to violence. And that's why the librarian has been arrested. That's why the other person, the other nurse, has now been arrested. The Democrat idiot in Arizona that said horrific things to teenage girls has been fired. So there is some accountability, but the most accountability could be coming from the fraudsters. And I think that not only with what's going on in Minneapolis and the Somali situation and all the fraud, waste, and abuse going on around the country, but they're really going through now and finding the details out on the 2020 election. And that is something that we can talk about. But Fulton County, not just Fulton County, obviously Phoenix, Arizona, Maricopa County. I mean, these were like ground zero of where the majority of the fraud was, especially in Georgia. We remember the suitcases being pulled out from underneath the tables and things like that. Ruby Moss, I think her name was, Ruby Freeman or whatever, stuffing these ballots into the machines. And then she ends up suing Rudy Giuliani and others and winning from left-wing judges huge amounts of money. Well, I got news for you. She's likely going to be indicted here very, very soon for election fraud. We remember the fake pipe break, bathroom leak, whatever thing that they said happened that never actually happened. So Georgia is now ground zero. As a matter of fact, the FBI raided today the election center in Fulton County. And so, like I said, they're working on a criminal conspiracy on the 2020 election. I just hope that they do no-knock warrants and they go into Adrian Fontes' office, Chris May's office, Katie Hobbs' office, and they just don't announce it, and they go in guns blazing, FBI, and they take all the hard drives, soft drives, everything, all the computers, modems, everything, and go through it all and just grab it all in Arizona, go to the MTAC Center, which is the Maricopa technical election centers, what it's called, MTech. Go in there, take all the drives, go through the machines, the tabulators, everything, the key cards, gather it all if you haven't done it already, and do that in Wayne County in Michigan, do that in Allegheny County in Pennsylvania, do that in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, do that in Clark County, Nevada, do that, all over the place, basically, wherever there was obviously fraud, Wisconsin, Madison, Milwaukee, and gather all that information, put this case together, and let's prosecute these people. Let's make sure that they're held accountable. And I think once we do that, that will be a major deterrent to future fraudsters.
Is it possible that they can still gather such evidence, or would it all be destroyed by now?
Some of it they can. And if they can't get certain information, remember, we now know for a fact that Fulton County admitted that 312,000 ballots in a state that supposedly went to, Dementia Joe by 11,779 total votes. 312,000 were not counted correctly. And even in the recounts, they didn't count. They recounted the duplicates. They recounted the dead voters. They recounted people that moved on purpose just to make it all balance. And now we're finding out that Ryan Macias from the election group was also part of the people that was overseeing for the audit in Arizona, was also now entangled into Fulton County hiding these ballots and documents. So Rat Boy, as we call him, is in both states. So I think a lot of these people are going to be subpoenaed. I think a lot of these people hopefully are going to be indicted.
Well, it's when you consider again which way you get to Nuremberg trials, most of the the first stuff to break is going to be the stuff that's directly aimed at the president, which would make sense. So that would be the stuff that is going effectively for a coup d'etat to remove the president. So you would detach that. That's where Russiagate becomes so important. Election of 2020, etc. The lawfare used against him, Jack Smith, etc. And then you unlayer it, and then you hit COVID eventually, and then you hit 9/11 eventually, if you can get that far down, and that would make more sense. But of course, it follows an order, and you can see that there is genuinely an order there. It's also why the Epstein files aren't as relevant as people thought they were. But what it is doing is bringing it to the attention and at the tip of everyone's lips. Like, I speak to people now, like you would never have thought would be aware of Epstein, and they talk about Epstein. And I go, well, there's the point. That is the whole point of it. Of course, they can't fully fathom what's really going on. Just related to that, Josh, the fact that the Clintons didn't turn up to their hearing that they were meant to, pops up this headline today from Radar. First bill, now Hillary Clinton. Heart attack fear and blood clots are spelling the end for the former First Lady. And of course, way back on February 14th, 2019, at Q Post, chatter Bill and Hillary's public health will begin to rapidly deteriorate. And of course, that's all linked to the fact that they forgot to or didn't turn up for their subpoena, for their hearing before the House Oversight Committee. And there are people on the left, like Brian Allen, who will say, it's a great move by the Clintons, because what this will do now is force discovery, and then the truth can come out about Donald Trump and the Epstein files. Well, Brian Allen, you have no idea what you're talking about. You're a Fruit Loop. But seriously, all they had to do was turn up and at the subpoena and give all the evidence that they wanted to do in front of the House Oversight Committee to make something else. But no, that you can keep dreaming the way that you are. Now, Josh, we sort of skipped over it, but I want to get back to it. This is Alex Pretti, who was killed a few days ago by ICE. This is him on January.
Real quick, let me just touch on Hillary. My audience will remember this from 2019 and 2020, and even before that, 2017, 2018. I was reporting on her health issues then. Deep thrombosis, vein disorders, and things like that.
Yep.
So she has major health issues. And we were talking about back then, I mean, we remember her freezing, her head bopping up and down. They basically pushed her into the SUV on 9/11 anniversary.
Sorry, I'm just...
and in good health as well. But going back on to Alex Pretti, isn't it interesting? And I just want to point this out. The people that support the protesters out there, they like to say that this is all organic. We're just upset. We're just really upset, and we want to show our solidarity, and we don't like what ICE is doing. So we're going to go out into negative 17 degree below weather to go and protest ICE peacefully with signs. That's what they want you to believe. That's what the media prostitutes want you to believe, right? But in reality, the two people that have been killed, Renee Bad and Alex Pretty Bad as well, they were both part of what? ICE watch groups. They weren't, quote, organic. They were trained. They were organized, strategized. They were funded, all of that, just like I said before. So here we have this guy who got into it with agents about a week before, right? He broke a rib and everything else. And I'm sure there's even more that you're going to discuss right now from the incident as well that we can talk about. But none of these people are organic. All of these people are agitators. They are radical extremists. And clearly, they are the reason why they're dead, because they were interfering and impeding a legal ICE operation.
Let's play that clip for you now. This has just popped up today on Alex Pretti on January 13th.
This is a moment the news movement filmed on January 13th in Minneapolis, showing a man who appears to be Alex Pretti interacting with federal immigration agents 11 days before Border Patrol shot and killed him. Our footage was analyzed by the BBC, whose facial recognition technology confirmed his identity to a 97% degree of accuracy. On the morning of January 13th, our team received a tip that federal agents were blocking a street at the corner of East 36 and Park Avenue in Minneapolis. We arrived around 10:15 a.m. We saw observers shouting at the agents as they walked back to their vehicles. When they started driving away, the man kicked their taillight. An agent then got out of the vehicle, grabbed him, and pushed him to the ground. During the altercation, agents fired tear gas and pepper balls into the crowd. They continued to hold the man down before they retreat, and he walks away. The man in our footage is wearing a similar outfit to what Pretti was wearing on the day he was killed. What appears to be a gun is also visible above his waistband. Here, he continues to stand at the scene. On the day he was killed, the Department of Homeland Security claims Pretti, a 37-year-old ICU nurse, approached officers holding a handgun. That claim has been contradicted by analysis of bystander videos from multiple news investigations, which concluded that Pretti was holding a phone, not a gun, when he was pinned to the street. Shortly after the altercation we filmed here on January 13th, federal agents drove away. Soon after that, we left the scene.
Interesting, isn't it?
Couple of things. Number one, he's wearing the same clothes, so obviously these stinky idiots don't like to shower. That would be number one. Number two, clearly he was an agitator. He kicked out the lights. And why didn't they arrest him? Why did they just push him down and subdue him? Why didn't they actually arrest him? Maybe if they would have arrested him, he wouldn't have been back out on the streets. And who knows, maybe he was arrested And of course, this no bail garbage let him right out. Who knows? I don't know the details on that. But maybe he'd still be alive. But the reality is he'd still be alive if he wasn't an idiot going after with a gun, whether he had a phone in his hand or a ham sandwich wrapped in tinfoil, or whether it was a gun. If you have something in your hands and it's not, quote, a megaphone, which is for peaceful protesting, well, then I'm pretty sure officers are going to be a little trigger happy, and rightfully so.
Well, we've since learnt that the particular officers are now on mandatory administration leave. The DHS confirming that the Border Patrol agents involved have been placed on admin leave, but that is part of a standard protocol after a shooting. But as always, the plot thickens, so we'll see which way that falls. But of course, not the innocent bystander getting in the way, trying to protect people, as you can see there, part of an organised agitation method. And of course, this is what is an insurrection. If you defy one law enforcement operation and pretend that you're another law enforcement and not doing it, well, there you go. You are headed into that exact same direction. I want to now cross to Marco Rubio today addressing Rand Paul, who wanted to take him on about the removal of Maduro in Venezuela. Let's cut to that clip now.
What it is, and let's vote on these things. But I think we're in violation of both the spirit and the law of the Constitution by bombing a capital, blockading a country, and removing elected officials. And we certainly wouldn't tolerate it, nor would I if someone did it to us.
Well, we didn't remove an elected official. We removed someone who was not elected, and it was actually an indicted drug trafficker in the United States. And their system...
Our laws, indicted under our laws. Look, Bolsonaro says that Da Silva is not really the president of Brazil. Our president said Biden wasn't really the president. Hillary Clinton said in 2016 Trump wasn't the president. So you have these arguments, and I agree with you. It probably was, and most likely was, most assuredly was a bad election. He wasn't really elected. But at the same time, if that's our predicate, and you don't have to come to us because it's a drug bust, we're just removing somebody, you can see where it leads to, and it leads to chaos. And that's why we have rules like the Constitution, so we don't get so far out there that presidents can do whatever they want. It is this check and balance. And I would argue for 70 years we've been going the wrong way. It isn't just this president, but it's a debate that I think is worth having.
Well, first and foremost, this was not something that would qualify under the War Powers Act, number one. We already know that in the United States in Congress, that the president has the ability to do any type of kinetic action to mitigate threats, if you will, against adversaries and enemies up to 30 days before having to then have a vote in Congress to then have it under the auspices of a War Powers Act. Clearly, this was not that case. This was a criminal indictment, no different than going to any other place around the world and picking up a bad guy on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. That's basically what happened here. We had a narco terrorist, which of course he was in charge of the De La Soul narco organization, which was a terrorist organization designated by the United States federal government and the Trump administration when they did an executive order and they labeled 11 organizations, many others, the Sinaloa cartel, I can't think of all the others. Obviously, MS-13 was on there. Tren de Agua was on there. Of course, this De La Soul one was on there. And just like they did with Antifa and the Muslim Brotherhood, when you designate an organization as a terrorist organization, all of a sudden now your tools expand considerably. And so this was not a, quote, war operation. This was this guy's on the FBI wanted list, $50 million bounty on their head, and they're a drug trafficking narco terrorist. So yes, we had all the legal and constitutional right to go in there and extract him, and that's exactly what we did, and God bless our military for doing so.
Well, also in the news is the US Navy heading over to the Middle East. We see this today. sailors and Marines conduct maintenance on the flight of the Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, US Abraham Lincoln. And then we get this out of Iran. Our brave armed forces are prepared with their fingers on the trigger to immediately and powerfully respond to any aggression against our beloved land, air and sea. The valuable lessons learned from the 12-day war have enabled us to respond even more strongly, rapidly and profoundly. At the same time, Iran has always welcomed a mutual, beneficial, fair and equitable nuclear deal on equal footing and free from coercion, threats and intimidation, which ensures Iran's rights to peaceful nuclear technology and guarantees no nuclear weapons. Such weapons have no place in our security calculations. There you go. What's happening in Iran, Josh, is the Ayatollah, who apparently is in hiding, is he on his last legs?
Yeah, I believe he is. Look, there's a huge armada. I talked about it a couple of days ago on my show that is now in the area. When he said help was on the way, he meant it. I just didn't know when it was going to happen. And obviously, we would have wanted it to happen sooner rather than later, because the death toll last that I was able to verify was 36,500, and that was just 2 days ago. So who knows where it's at now? It could be over 40,000 by now. Gosh, I hope it's not, but we don't know. I would assume it's probably around that, maybe even higher than that. And so we're putting 3 aircraft carriers in the area, missile defense capabilities, the ability to knock out their ability to even fire back against us, just like we did in the 12-day war. So the Iranian foreign minister, or whoever it is, can talk tough and say that you're going to do this and you're going to do that, but you have obviously not only a propensity to be weak, but more importantly, a track record of not even being able to launch any missiles at all. You had a couple shoot out over the Golden Dome, which of course Israel handled no problem at all. And then to save face, because you got defeated so fast, once your military capabilities and your nuclear facilities were blown to bits and pieces, then I guess, what was it, Qatar or the UAE, one of those countries said, hey, let them shoot off a couple of missiles that's not going to hurt anybody so they can save face and pat each other on the back. Look, I think that the protesters understand. They are emboldened. They have had enough of this regime. And I do believe that the president and Israel and the IDF and our military and Mossad, whatever, maybe the reason they were waiting, we've discussed this on this show before in the past week or so, that they were getting their entities, they were getting their resources, all of that stuff in the area first. They were making sure that Israel was set up and ready for their capabilities as well. And so this is a multi-pronged approach to hopefully either extract him, find him, or eliminate him and the entire mullahs, clerics, and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, and finally free and liberate these 92 million people that have been suffering for so long.
Well, as they say in the Q Post, watch the water. And when you mentioned that about Iran and the strike, it reminded me of the Iron Eagle movie, which of course was another Q Post as well. It's just very interesting that all this is coming back for the people that have been following the Q stuff. It just all lines up very well. I want to put up a quick graphic here. We kind of skipped over it, but this is Anna Paulina Luna saying, would you look at that? John Thune says the SAVE Act will be brought to a floor vote.
Yes.
Just explain that for the viewers, please, what it actually means and can it actually pass?
The SAVE Act would basically mandate that every single state, all 50 of them, unless you're Barack Obama, somehow there's 57 for him, but I digress. But all states would have to adhere to mandatory voter ID in all states. And that's really, there's a little bit more to it, but the precipice of the act is based off of that. And so we need election integrity. Look, I've been calling for it for months. Not just me. I'm not the only voice out there. There's been a lot of other voices have been saying it. And I just said recently on an interview that I just did, and I said, look, we need one more budget reconciliation bill. As a matter of fact, you can stop the potential imminent government shutdown by actually doing a budget reconciliation bill. You don't need 60 votes, right? I mean, that's how the one big beautiful bill was passed. It was done through budget reconciliation. You only needed 51 votes. And, of course, Vance would be that tiebreaker. And so that's what we ought to do. And we ought to nuke the filibuster. I've been back and forth on that, whether we should, whether we shouldn't. But after watching that Minneapolis video with James O'Keefe, there is clearly no way that these people are interested in getting political power peacefully through the electoral process here. And if, God forbid, in 2028 they take power, they're going to pass H.R. 1, which would federalize our elections, taking that power away from the state legislatures. They will flood the country, or at least try to flood the country again with illegal aliens. They will probably make statehood for not just Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico, but maybe the Mariana Islands, maybe American Samoa. Who knows what these people are capable of, not to mention the fact that the Supreme Court would have 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, maybe 20 judges to dilute any type of conservative ideology. I mean, we are in the most dangerous times right now for this country. And clearly, as I had a warning back in 2020, I said, during that time, I said that election, before the election was stolen, I said it was Trump or death. And what I meant by that was the death of American freedom, our Second Amendment, our right to, privacy, all the different things that we cherish as Americans was all on the line. And clearly I was just about right, because look what happened in the Otto Penn years. Look at how many things that they tried to do and pass. Thankfully, we had two rogue, and I'll call them that, rogue Democrat senators. You had Kirsten Sinema and you had Joe Manchin. And God bless both of them for doing what they did, because they stopped a lot of things. And remember, they tried to get rid of the filibuster back then. So if, God forbid, they win the Senate and the House and the presidency, they're going to nuke it immediately. So you know what? Let's get to it first. Let's nuke this thing. Again, I was on the fence for a long time, but I'm not on the fence anymore. I am 100% soundly behind doing it, only because I know that they're so radical and extreme, and communist revolutionaries, they're not Democrats. They want to overtake the United States of America, and we can't let it happen.
Well, let's look here. This is from Pam Bondi, Minnesota arrests. I'm on the ground in Minneapolis. Federal agents have arrested 16 rioters for allegedly assaulting federal law enforcement. People have been resisting and impeding our law enforcement agents. We expect more arrests to come. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Nothing will stop President Trump and his Department of Justice from enforcing the law. So there you have it. There is a real determination, and that's when I asked at the beginning of the show if you feel like we are witnessing a civil war in the United States. Now, Josh, before I get into what is an unusual segment, it's a bit based on finance and money and wealth. We're going to get into that in a moment. Just a quick comment here. In Australia, we have a situation now that after the split of the Liberal and Nationals, the coalition, the Liberals are talking about a leadership spill, which is all based on the fact that Susan Lee is unelectable and her popularity is down to 16%, which puts her in third place behind Pauline Hanson and Anthony Albanese. The Nationals have also gone towards having a spill where Colin Boyce, one of the National members, has said that he's going to challenge the leader, David Littleproud, although he's not expected to win. And the reason that he's doing that is because of the fact that they have broken up the coalition, which kind of doesn't make any sense. So it's like a that's Bridget McKenzie there in a very unflattering photo. But National Senator Bridget McKenzie's claimed Littleproud will survive as party leader as he stares down a leadership tilt from a disgruntled colleague. On Wednesday, LNP MP Colin Boyce confirmed he would challenge Littleproud for the top job when Parliament resumes next week, saying the National Party was committing political suicide by removing itself from the coalition. Well, it's either a fast death or a slow death. That's the point. So Colin Boyce, an LNP, which means he comes from Queensland, where the parties are actually one party, will be trying to do something there. It's not going to help. It's not going to work. All I'll say is just to confirm what I said the other day, that there is work behind the scenes amongst the third parties in terms of merging. We have a branch meeting next Wednesday. I know that all the People First Party branch meetings are on this week and next week around the New South Wales state, of which there are 10, and it will be interesting to see what the feeling is amongst the members themselves in the rank and file in terms of what they feel, if they want to merge, if they want to stay on their own. But that's the purpose of being in a political party, and we'll see. But look, if the Liberal Nationals have to merge to create government, why wouldn't 12 third parties feel like they have to do the same, that suddenly they're going to be able to make a big change? So that's just what I wanted to say today about the Australian scenario. But what I want to do now is jump into some of the finance stuff. And firstly, just want to touch on gold and silver. A lot of people were saying for some time that XRP or Ripple was going to be the great big financial solution amongst the crypto markets, but that price sort of hit $4 or $5 Australian. It's dropped down to about $3 or $3.50, and they're predicting that it will jump back up again. But if you put all your money into crypto or XRP, you probably missed this boat, this rush of silver. Silver's up nearly 300% in a year. I remember last year looking at the silver price, it was around about $50 Australian an ounce. It's now over $170. I'll give you the US prices right now: $121 for an ounce of silver, and gold $5,492 right now. It was just over. It was at 5,500 a minute ago before it refreshed, and silver was at 122.5. These are record prices on both precious metals, and it goes to show you what's happening there. People are sort of speculating that it's the end of the US dollar, which is technically what people expected, that Trump would be resetting a whole financial system. But at the same time, you've got debt around the world being held by China over America, and they're obviously very interested in being able to stock up their country's reserves of precious metals, along with a lot of private investment. The interesting part is that all of the paper silver investments that are out there are something like 362 ounces for every 1 ounce being held in actual physical silver. So these paper trading, this derivative market, when people start calling for their silver and they're not able to get it, two things will happen. One, it'll force the price up, because in the meantime, in the interim, for people to meet these requirements, what they're going to do is they're going to offer well over the odds for money. So, for example, let's say JP Morgan has all of these silver derivatives out there and people are starting to call for it. What they will do is they'll say, well, we'll pay $200 an ounce, we'll pay $250 an ounce. And it's speculated that they're going to have to pay $400 an ounce, US dollars, to get people to sell their silver and to therefore meet those requirements. But that won't work. It'll only sort of, it'd be like sort of putting your finger in the dike there and trying to stop the big flood coming. It can't happen, but that will force the price up even further. So that's what's coming. But just on that, I'm going to play a quick clip and we'll come back. This is based on the collapse of the dollar. Mind you, though, Donald Trump is not worried at all about the dollar correcting. About in Australian cents, it was 63 cents US a few weeks ago, and today it's 70.5 cents, to give you an idea. It's not like it's doubled or anything. Here we go.
And the world is now pulling the rug out from under the U.S. The dollar is going to collapse. The dollar is going to be replaced by gold. Central banks are buying gold to back up their currencies. True. They're getting rid of dollars. They're getting rid of treasuries. We are headed for an economic crisis, again, that will make the 2008 financial crisis look like a Sunday school picnic. The biggest difference between the crisis that we're about to have and the one we had back then is this one is all in America. It's not going to be exported to the rest of the world. It's not a global financial crisis. It's an American financial crisis.
Yeah, well, first off, they've been calling for the end of the dollar and, basically planning its funeral since, I don't know, probably the 50s or 60s, right? It seems like it's been happening for a very long time. I will say that if Trump was not in office, with the emergence of BRICS, right? This is Brazil, Russia, India, and I think
China, South Africa. Yeah,
those are the countries of the BRICS, which is basically a Chinese-based off the yuan trying to replace the dollar, which clearly isn't going to happen at all. I think that if anything, this could be a temporary correction of the market. But look, I agree. Buy gold, buy silver. You can't print more of it, right? So it's going to keep its value. It's going to hold its value. And quite frankly, it could make you very, very wealthy if you buy a certain amount of it and you buy it now or, very, very soon. So I do agree with that. I think that the crypto is certainly much more volatile than gold and silver and precious metals and things of that nature. But this idiot, whoever on whatever show that was, he doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't even have an economics degree, and I can clearly tell you the dollar is not going anywhere. Is it great, though, that maybe in the future that we can kind of wean ourselves off of money and go to a gold standard like it was in 1913 and audit the Fed and do all those wonderful things, which is a big, huge position that independents and libertarians would love to do. And I've always said, as a fiscal libertarian conservative, I would love to go back to the gold standard. But I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, especially not with 36, $37 trillion in debt.
Well, that was where crypto, I think, came from, that speculation that they would somehow use crypto to retire that $37 trillion in debt. If the gold standard was to be reintroduced, Jim Rickards predicted that it would have to hit $15,000 an ounce to be able to have enough money to represent the money in the system. That was a couple of years ago, so that probably means it's going to be nudging up towards 20,000. That's US dollars, and at the moment it's only 5, so that means it's got to increase 600%. And whether or not it gets there or whether or not it gets partially there, it shows you where the upside is. And then, of course, remembering that gold's always been a hedge against inflation. And when you get to silver, which is now trading sort of about 1 to 50 against gold, it's in huge industrial uses. And, of course, with the introduction of AI, it's going to be in huge demand. So the price of silver has to go up, may even increase more than that. So they're the speculations. No financial advice, of course. Heaven forbid anyone tells you what you're going to do. It's your own money. You make your own decisions. But there it is. And by the way, there are lots of gold and silver bullion dealers out there. I had a good look at all of them yesterday, and they all have different, slightly different, even spot prices, which is weird. You think there'd be one market. I know that ABC Bullion seems to be trading at a higher price than others here in Australia, and there are others that are good to buy from that are a little bit cheaper, and there are others that are good to sell with, which tend to pay a little bit more because the gaps now have widened a lot with this huge boom. I know ABC Bullion used to have an 11.8% spread when you bought and sold silver on either side of spot, and that's now spread to 18%. That's a huge amount of money. It's around about 18% as well trading in platinum, whereas gold's only about 5.5%. So it gives you an idea of the differences there. That's just a bit of an aside. In the meantime, Trump accounts were launched today. I'm going to play a couple of short clips by Donald Trump here discussing what this all means for newborn children in the United States. For the first time ever, they're going to get something, not nothing, and a great head start. Take a look.
Going to put $3 to $4 trillion of wealth into the hands of young Americans who otherwise would have really started out with nothing. It's really an amazing thing because it gives young children that start out with really nothing, and it gives them, boy, it's more money than anybody could imagine. From their standpoint, they'll have a real start in life, and that's why decades from now, I believe the Trump accounts will be remembered as one of the most transformative policy innovations of all time. And I've done a lot of them. The tax cuts, we've done a lot of them, more than I think anybody. And I think this is going to be one of the most outstanding. Every president in modern history has left our children with nothing but debt. But under this administration, we're going to leave every child with real assets and a shot at financial freedom. We'll ensure that Americans don't just end their lives with a nest egg, but instead all Americans will begin their lives with a beautiful nest egg.
Isn't that fabulous?
I love it. I love it. One of the greatest byproducts of doing something like this is the fact that once they turn 18, they can have, I think, up to $100,000 or $90,000. I think it's $100,000. And the best part is that when they're growing up, birthday parties, communions, confirmations, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, quinceanera, whatever it might be, right? Whatever that occasion is, people can donate money to this baby account. So instead of getting them toys and presents and things like that, you can get them, you can give money to this account. So the great thing about it is that even people that are poor or middle class or whatever, even the wealthy, it really doesn't matter because they're going to have an upper start in life. And I think this is just incredible. I think it's amazing. And more importantly, what this will do is it will create future conservatives and Republican voters because these kids are going to learn that the value of a dollar, number one, but more importantly, they're going to understand that time is any investment's best friend. And clearly, a baby account like this, they're going to understand what it started at. And then they're going to say when they turn 18, wow, it's worth this amount now?
Yep.
And I didn't have to work for it. I was just born. Wow, the market really works. So capitalism is the way to go. So when these people talk about socialism and everything else, they're going to see firsthand and they're going to experience it firsthand. And then we need to have the teachers and the mentors and the parents out there explain to these kids as they're growing up that this is why capitalism is good, because you can grow your money and keep your money and invest your money and things like that rather than dependent on the government for everything you need. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Well said. I totally concur, and that's the point, isn't it? That the trick to money is to have a little, and the idea here is that, as you said, to build a future of conservatives, that just by the nature
Correct.
of having a little bit of money and not being dependent on the government for handouts and living week to week, hand to mouth, etc. On the contrary, you'll now have enough money for a deposit on a home, to start a business, to pay some university debt, whatever it is, some education, something to build an investment in oneself. And the idea of being able to improve oneself is to not just take action, but to take massive action, and that is to take massive action. Now, Josh, we are over time as usual. I need about 2 minutes to wrap this one up, but this is the story I'm going with. Next month or up till April, these 4 individuals will be flying a figure 8 pattern around the moon. They have been identified as Reed Wiseman, the commander, Victor Glover, the pilot, Christina Koch, mission specialist, Jeremy Hansen, another mission specialist. This is to go around the moon before the US plans on relanding and moving towards putting a base there. 57 years since the first moon landing. Very, very interesting, the timing of it and why they would be doing it. And today just happens to be the 40th anniversary of the loss of the Space Shuttle Challenger.
Wow.
Now, for those that have watched that, I watched an interview, a very interesting interview this morning on the Today Show. Carl Kruszelnicki, scientist in Australia, very terribly woke. He was in an interview 40 years ago explaining how that happened and the timing of it in Florida. It was freezing, the weather, and he actually said that NASA people knew that it was going to blow up, which is a huge statement to make. But basically different rubber parts, etc., had frozen, and so they knew that this was going to on, but they didn't want to back off, and there was some weird thing. Now, he reached out to become an astronaut and was rejected because he was an Australian, but he went on to the Ray Martin Midday Show, I guess it would have been 40 years ago, and explained how he knew what was going on. Now, if they knew that this was going to happen, it only fuels the great conspiracy theory that all 7 Challenger astronauts survived. I don't know if you've seen this. I haven't got the pictures of it, but those can check it out online, because all 7 of those people that were on board tend to have these crazy doppelganger lookalikes, some with even the same name. And it's been debunked. You share it on Facebook, depending on who you are. You got banned for a month for doing it. But it is a fascinating conspiracy theory. And the only reason I brought that up was that Carl Kruszelnicki said they knew that it was going to blow up in today's interview on the Today Show. And how would he know that, being such a woke left-wing ABC scientist, to make that comment off the cuff? He wouldn't know anything about the conspiracy theory, but those that are out there's that point. Anyway, to double down on that, here's the story. A UK filmmaker claims that Trump has got a UFO disclosure speech set for July 8, 2026, 4 days after the 250th celebration. There you go. So it'll be basically the same week. That is a huge one. And where I wanted to go was just to remind viewers, take a look at this on the Joe Rogan show slightly before he was re-elected, what he said when the subject came up. Have a look.
Interested in the people coming from space,
Yes.
And I know you're interested in that.
Oh, very interested in that. How much did they tell you about that?
A lot.
Really?
Yeah.
What'd they tell you? How much can you tell?
So
how's that work? Is it like super
I think
top
I
secret?
Can tell,
Tell me.
Well, based on Hunter Biden, I can say whatever the hell I want, right? But no. But I interviewed a few people. It's never been my thing, I have to be honest. I have never been a believer. I have people that Area 51 or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the #1 tourist attraction in the whole country or something. Area 51 in Las Vegas. Do you know that, right?
Sure. I know what it is.
So anyway, but it's a big tourist thing. So I interviewed jet pilots that say they saw something. If you saw them, you'd love to have them as your
I've had a
son.
couple in here. Commander David Fravor.
Yeah.
I had him in, who had that sighting in 2004. Very compelling with video evidence, radar evidence. Ryan Graves.
I don't believe his name, but I interviewed jet pilots that were solid people. Perfect. I mean, great pilots, great everything. And they said, we saw things, sir, that were very strange. Like a round ball, but it wasn't a comet or a meteor. It was something. And it was going 4 times faster than an F-22, which is a very fast plane,
Wow. I don't know. That's interesting. I actually remember the space shuttle explosion. As a matter of fact, I was walking home from school. I was 10 years old, I think, and I was walking home from school, and I walk in, and my sister is watching television, and she was watching, I think, like The Young and the Restless or General Hospital or whatever, and all of a sudden it broke, and they, breaking news kind of thing, and then all of a sudden I was 10, so I didn't really understand, and then she started crying, and so I went upstairs and I was like, Mom, why is Katie crying? And she's like, well, this is what happened and this and that. So I actually remember when it happened, and then I think like the next day or maybe the day after that, back in school, and this is back on the East Coast, in New Jersey, we actually had like the television set up, and they were watching the explosion. Now I'm trying to think to myself, why would you show that to 10-year-old kids? But they did, and I think it was like in science class or something like that. And then I just remember from that, Reagan making speeches and everybody making speeches and all that. And I think it happened around my birthday, sometime around February, I think, in the beginning of February maybe, or the end of January. I don't remember. I know it was 1985 or 86, but I remember it, even to this day. So.
Look, it's one of the subjects that has always caught my imagination, because I just feel like that to reach a point in human consciousness that we're not alone, and therefore someone was able to get our attention, and therefore all of science is up in the air. It's a massive chance for a great, huge leap in human knowledge that's beyond AI reliability, which is just sort of distilling and fine-tuning everything we already know so that everyone can have access to that. But if you can get a whole branch of new knowledge that's massive increase, well, that just changes the human being from that moment onwards, and lets us know what's going on.
Is revealed.
Exactly, and it could all be
the anniversary.
It could all be nonsense, but I was following Three Eye Atlas, the comet that went past, whether it was a comet or not. But the big thing with that is that it's expected to reach Jupiter's orbit, somewhere around August this year. And why that is interesting is that the trajectory that it is on is supposed to be exactly the point where the sun's gravity and Jupiter's gravity intersect, which means that Three Eye Atlas could well become a satellite or a moon of Jupiter. That's where it could actually end up. And the fact that this thing has got and was seen from a trajectory from 4.5 billion light years away, therefore it tells us how old this particular rock or whatever it is, this object is in space. And for it to arrive at Jupiter from that long ago, well, you're wondering what other connection, if it's totally random or not. It is something that is beyond the realms of what we understand or know, and it is terribly, terribly exciting. So if we get to 4th of July, we get a UFO disclosure, which would be the biggest news in history, and then we get to see Three Eye Atlas launch, or will get caught in Jupiter's orbit, therefore, and become one of its moons. It would be just something else to sort of set that story in motion. But of course, it could all be nonsense just the same, and we go back to square one. But look, if anyone was going
to all the Labor Party representatives from all around the entire world, and the American Democratic Party here in America, and any registered Democrat or liberal in any country, including all illegal aliens everywhere, and just put them all on the moon. Get them out of countries. Put them all on the moon.
It's funny you say that, because I'd probably volunteer to go, but if they're all going to go, I'm probably going to have to stay home.
Right, exactly.
A woke moon, I don't think it's going to work. But then again, I don't think they'll survive too much longer without George's money being sent over to them. But look, I just look at that and I think that there is just something very special with what's going on. If the only president in history to be able to reveal that, it won't be what the CIA or the establishment wants you to know. It'll be on the terms of the president of the day. He's the one that needs to disclose it, if anyone's ever going to do it, because it will mean a lot more. Pardon me, Josh, we've reached the end of the show. We've gone over as usual. I'm going to say goodbye to you and to everyone. Just quickly, how do they find you?
Yes, jbushow.substack.com. Please join. Again, it's only $49 American money. That equates to $4.08 monthly. It's probably the lowest one, if not the lowest one, on all of Substack. I do 7 to 10 shows per week. We have the Full Throttle Thursday, although we're going to do it tonight instead, because I have some other engagements that I have to deal with, personal issues. But normally it's every Thursday, and you get a chance to talk to me, ask me questions, and get involved in a great hour-long conversation. You also get a free copy. All paid subscribers get a free copy of Preserving Liberty. You get a digital copy, which is about a $14, $13 value as well. So check it out, jbushow.substack.com.
Fabulous. Well, on that note, we will take leave and see you all next time. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Please like, share, and I really appreciate the comments. Thanks. Bye.